Okay. Do you want to jump on your phone? Just find it, see how it looks. Yeah, you don't want to jump on your phone. I think that's live now then. I don't know. Let me just jump on here to double check. Bear with us a moment, guys. Oh yeah, we're live now. People can see that we are live now. It's right now. Bear with us a moment. Okay.
Yeah,
Get started.
Yeah,
okay, let's go. Let's go. Okay, guys. So today we're going to be talking about how not to work out from home during the lockdown. So the camera's in a little bit of a different place today, so I'm just very used to that. So we're going to go through a few bits and pieces first and foremost. What should you be avoiding? How should you really not be working out right now during this lockdown period? There's a lot of videos out there on social media, people doing workouts, things like that, but you've got to apply this to you, especially if you're someone that does have back pain or has a history of back pain or those sorts of things. I want to be a bit more sensible with regards to how you go about these exercises. So I'll talk about those things to avoid, what you shouldn't be doing. And then at the end of this video, I'll run briefly through the things that we should be doing to make sure we're getting the most out of our workouts, but doing it in a safe and sensible way. And these sort of 5 principles that I'll run through today by the end of the video will at least give you an idea or a framework so you can fit in whatever workout it is, whether it's a workout on social media, whether it's something that you've done in the past, or whether it's just something you look up online. You'll be at least have an understanding of how you can apply these principles to any workout, no matter what it is, so you can keep yourself preoccupied safely from home during the lockdown. So first of all is flexion. Forward bending. Any amount of forward bending or repetitive forward bending is not advantageous. There's no need to do it, and all it does is further compress and irritate those structures of the back. Right now, there's a lot of sitting, a lot of bad posture, and all of this involves rounding of your lower back. You're sat in a position whereby that flexion is essentially a permanent feature on a daily basis, whether you're sat in the bed or sat on the sofa or sat in the office chair in your sort of home office or even at the kitchen table. We've got a lot of flexion, so you want to be avoiding these movements in our workouts as well. It's just not advantageous. The next thing is going to be flexion with twisting, and the reason I mention this is that are very common. We've all heard of someone or even yourself. You bend down to put your socks on in the morning, a little bit of a twist, a little bit of flexion, and boom, there goes that disc. The reasons that this creates a weakness or vulnerability in the lumbar spine in particular is because it really comes down to the structure of the disc. In the disc, if you think of it like a jam donut, you've probably heard this before. We've got the donut bit around the side, which is called the annulus fibrosus. That's primarily ligamentous in structure. We've got the jam in the middle, which is the nucleus. And it's the annulus that we tend to injure. So the arrangement of this is in that doughy section, so donut, got a number of fibers laid perpendicular to one another. And when we do a rotation, we turn every other one off and we focus tension through every other fiber in the annulus. And the impact of that means it stresses certain fibers. And if we have some low-grade tears or injuries to those that we wouldn't symptomatically feel in any way, shape, or form, by doing that rotation, we pre-stress potentially some vulnerable fibers. And then we add that flexion and that compression, and that creates an overload on those specific ones, and that's where the injury happens. So we really want to avoid that. And exercises that replicate this are going to be bad technique, but also things like Russian twists, where we're in that V-sit position, twisting left and right, and that's just grinding down on that disc and really asking for trouble. So try and leave that alone. It's not advantageous. How many times on a daily basis are you down there doing this and this and this? It's not something that's going to help you with your day-to-day routine. It's not something that's going to make you meaningfully improved in terms of your body's durability. And there are tons of other things that can be so much more effective. So cut it out. Next one is going to be adding new movements. Right now, well, as with any sort of back pain, it's easier to get it dealt with at the time of injury or very shortly after. And right now, because of the lockdown, it's very difficult for you to actually get the treatment that you need. Getting actual treatment for your back is going to be difficult. So we don't want to run the risks of trying some new fruity burpee variation that you've seen on Instagram, where they do a burpee into a single leg pistol squat. and injure yourself. So don't do anything fruity, anything silly. Evaluate it based on your own levels of competence, skill, and athletic history. If you're someone who's actually a really good footballer, playing for years, you've kept up into maybe the last years, you're regularly doing plyometric type leaping and bounding exercises, and your bodies and your joints are capable of that, then yes, that's fine. But if you're someone that normally uses the elliptical, that does a few machine weights and sits in the office all day, and that's your routine, starting doing plyometrics and those sorts of things, jumping around in the house with some of these HIIT workouts that you see online, is not going to be a good idea. It is a recipe for disaster, so please try and avoid that. And the last one is going to be impact. Avoid any excessive impact-based workouts. So that's the leaping, the bounding, the jumping, plyometrics, all that sort of bouncing up and down, jumping jacks, all that sort of stuff. Try your best to steer clear of those particular exercises for the time being. You always have to have this way. What is the purpose of me doing this exercise? Is it actually meaningfully doing anything that I couldn't get from a safer and more sensible workout? We'll get to this a little bit later on, but really evaluate, is it necessary? I use this example of patients in the clinic. For example, some people like say, oh, I do cycling, or I do go on the rowing machine and do my cardio. Why don't you do the cross trainer? So much easier, really, really safe. You're upright, nice neutral position. You can work as hard as you want to build up a sweat. Cardiovascular system. So, oh, I don't like that. I like rowing. And the real argument is rowing is a good one where it's flexion. Cycling again, flexion. Unless that person is going to compete in the Cambridge boat race, or they're going to ride the Tour de France to try and get a yellow jersey, there's no upside for doing that exercise compared to another exercise that's equally effective on a cardiovascular front and has none of the downsides of being in those flex positions for long periods. So really pay attention to what the upside of your exercise is. There's no need to make it unnecessarily complicated or challenging on your body if it doesn't need it. So that's sort of the bad things, the things you want to avoid. What shouldn't you be doing during your workouts while you're on lockdown? What are these principles that I discussed at the start of the video, or touched on at the start of the video, that you can do right now and apply to all of your future workouts? So there's really 4 or 5 points I want you to pay attention to. First one is keep a neutral spine. In our lower back, we should have a nice smooth curve, a backward bending curve in the lumbar spine. This is the neutral position. It puts all the joints and all the bones and all the muscles in the right position so they can work as effectively as possible, and so the spine can load bear as effectively as possible, minimizing stress on any particular one area, therefore running the risk of overloading it. So in that neutral position, that's the first point. The second point is make sure your core is engaged. And by the core, we mean the core sit. The muscles that run around the core, this is your obliques, internal and external, your transverse abdominis muscles, they all blend as one mesh to hold that stabilization around your lumbar spine. Combining that with the neutral position spine is going to be really helpful because it holds that good position even more stable. Just on a slight tangent, we get patients to do an exercise called dead bugs in clinic. Slight variation on what you might see online, but there's a video that explains how you can do that on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out after this video. But with those, you need to have the core engaged correctly, these corset muscles working, rather than the six-pack. And one of the mistakes people make is they engage the six-pack and then just wiggle the legs. But if you engage the core properly, you can keep that spine in neutral position, protect it whilst challenging the core at the same time. So it's a much more effective way of doing core exercises, challenging the core, because it takes advantage of proper core engagement and a neutral lumbar spine. That's really important. The next one is focusing on your form. It's all well and good doing a movement and looking like you're doing it, but if you're flailing all over the place and nothing's really engaged, then that's not going to be effective. So make sure you focus your form. A few examples of this might be on a squat. As you get down towards the bottom part of the squat, the bum tucking under, that's going to load that L5S1 inappropriately, and that's really a sign that maybe your hamstrings aren't quite flexible enough, or you don't have the balance or the form to be able to do the squat to that depth. And that's not a problem. You just do a slightly more shallow squat for the time being until you develop the flexibility and other balance coordination aspects to be able to do the squat to a slightly deeper depth. Keep your form and don't push it too far so that your form starts to wane and lose its technique. Next one is a toss-up between explosive and impact. Now, I used examples of squats earlier, and we'll stay with that example for now. As you're doing a squat, you can do an explosive squat or you can do a jump squat. The benefit of both of those is that they tend to stimulate the fast twitch muscle fibers, which are really, really important, especially as we age. Fast twitch fibers are the fibers that get lost, and this is why partially you see elderly people, their bodies slow to react. If they're walking along and they miss a step and their body's going off balance, and the slow twitch fibers are slow to go, oh, we need to do something about this, and then catch them. And sometimes that's too late. In the younger people, where they've got those good fast twitch fibers, as soon as they miss that step, the body quickly reacts and catches them. They don't fall over. Doing explosive or quick movements on these squats, for example, firing back up, is a great way to stimulate those fast twitch type muscle fibers without the impact of maybe a jumping squat. It's particularly important as we get older. There's only two real ways to stimulate those fast twitch, and that's through fast movement or heavy loading. And obviously, it's not necessarily the best for someone with back pain to be considering the second one. And as long as you have a neutral spine, keep your core engaged, and use correct form, doing an explosive movement is perfectly safe and appropriate to do, and will help you get an extra aspect or an extra benefit out of your training. And then the last one is going to be your stretching. We touched on this on yesterday's live, but essentially there's sort of I'm in two minds with regards to stretching. Yes, it's good to do a little bit of warm down stretching afterwards, immediately after you work out, but I actually find it's really beneficial for patients and for people in general before bed or later in the evening to just go through your stretching routine. Calm everything down. It also helps mentally as well as you're going through that shutdown, going through those stretches, really relaxing into them so you can get the most out of them. And then you're not overloading the joints and tendons right after a good workout. You're then pulling them even more with your stretching. So that's really important as well, that we don't do too much on the stretching front immediately after the workout, and possibly moving that stretching to a specific dedicated stretching time slightly later in the day. And it's something I do about 20 minutes, half an hour before bed, reasonably regularly, and it really, really works on a number of levels from a stretching point of view, but also on a mental level as well, relaxing in the evening and shutting off without having a screen in front of you. So just to finish up, I'll go through it on the screen here, on the board. Main points. So how to not work out, or how not to work out from home during the lockdown. Bit of a mouthful there. First one, avoiding flexion. You don't want to be doing any forward bending. It's unnecessary. It puts more pressure through your lumbar spine in unfavorable ways and has very limited upside in terms of benefit. Flexion and twisting is a further building on that same concept, and again, not a good one. It's going to really challenge your discs. Unless you want to really provoke a prolapsed lumbar disc or herniated lumbar disc, it's a very good one to avoid. Next one is going to be new movements. Don't take this lockdown as a time to take up, I don't know, triple jump. It's not going to be helpful for you if you're someone who's not doing leaping and bounding activities, so be careful with what new activities you do. You want to try and select a routine that is as close as possible to that you would normally do in terms of the characteristics of that workout. We discussed yesterday an example of a new shoe. If you're putting on your old shoe, the pressure points are always in the same spot, and your body's or your foot is used to those pressure points. When we put on a new shoe, there's new pressure points and we get a few blisters when we start. You don't want to be getting blisters right now because there's not the support that you need from a point of view of clinics being open to be able to help you. So it's much better to avoid getting in trouble than it is to deal with trouble after it's been gotten. If that's a correct grammar there. Lost the train of thought there. The last one is going to be impact. Try and avoid impact. It's just not worth it. That's pretty much all there is to say on that. Then we go into do this instead. What should you be doing? And this actually fits in really neatly. I didn't quite appreciate this until actually going through it with you now, how neatly this does fit in such an ordered form. First one is a neutral, stable, natural curve in that lower back, the neutral position of the spine. The second one, building on top of that, is that strong engagement of the corset muscles, those deep core muscles, not just the six pack, but the core muscles here. Then it's maintaining good form throughout the entirety of your workout, making sure that technique is there the whole time through. Choosing explosive movements over impact movements. That way we can stimulate those fast twitch muscle fibers and still get an additional angle or additional benefit out of our workout, whilst doing something that really is going to ramp up your heart rate and your cardiovascular system or demand a little bit more by using that explosion rather than just constant, steady, slow reps, getting that explosive nature in there. With everything, with all the others maintained, these top three maintained, is going to be really, really good. And then finally, making sure you're stretching, doing a little bit of stretching and warm down after the workout because that's sensible. But maybe having a dedicated stretching time later in the day, which you do 3, 4, 5 days a week on top of your workouts, would be a really, really good use. So I hope that's been helpful, guys. Hope you found the video useful and put in practice some of these topics. And we'll see you next time on the live stream. Thanks for watching.